Hi, I am Patrick from Just Got Played. I want to thank you very much for watching this how to play video for Science or Die. Or it might be called something completely different. But what it is a 1 to 6 player co-op game by Gray Fox. I need to hazard you that this is a prototype version of the game, so maybe not every single detail and aspect is going to be the exact same as the production model. But it's going to be very, very close because I think they've nailed it. This game is pretty darn good and I've played it many, many times myself. All right, so the game comes with 36 different colored, shaped, sized blocks that you're going to use to be building stuff. It comes with a deck of event cards, a huge deck of design cards, a mutation cards deck, a disease deck, and boards for each and every one of those deck of cards that not only have a location for your gently shuffled cards, but also a place for discard that you'll be using as well. It comes with a little baggie of call-out tokens, a variety of master cure tiles that you'll be assembling later, a plethora of roll/workshop cards, a lab board that's going to give you 3 different designated areas for labs, in addition to an insight track with 3 different insight cubes of matching colors. That's going to be your victory points later on, but it also triggers special abilities, and we'll discuss that. You also get a little stack of, well, not so little stack, of lab tiles. These lab tiles can be placed over the lab requirements. In any game that you're playing, you probably want to wait till you're playing a little bit more experiencedly. Is that a word? Till you've played the game a few times and know exactly what you're doing. We're going to be playing with just the basic ones to start with. But it also adds a lot of variability later on if you're playing the game over and over and over again, which you will. This also comes with a wasted design cards board. It's going to be a place to put all our wasted designs, and we will definitely have those. That is all the components. Let's get right into setup, and that could not be easier. During the setup of the game, you're going to take one of these Master Cure tiles that's shaped like a sergeant and put that into your play area. You're also going to take a disease card and place one of those face up into every lab, covering up the verified area and showing the incomplete tabs on both sides. You'll also see that in my alpha lab, I require mutations. Some other labs are going to require them too. So this one starts off with a mutation right out of the bat. The mutations do a couple of things. The first thing they do is make your lab requirements even more difficult. But another thing they do is end the game. If you don't have a place to put a mutation, the game is over. You may only put 1 mutation per card slot. You can't double stack them, and you put them in the next available slot per lab. Once you place 3, if you're forced to place a 4th, the game is over. The viruses have spread loose, they're mutating like crazy, and you've destroyed society, and it's all your fault. I have the sniffles and I get grumpy when that happens. We do not want that to happen. Your mutations are placed out onto the board. Your Master Cure tiles out. And last thing you're going to do is select one of these roll/workshop cards. I recommend, and so does the publisher, that you pick one that has the little star on the top. That'll make your first few plays a little bit easier. Plus, the special abilities on them are pretty darn good. This one, for example, lets you have a hand size of 2 instead of just 1. That is all you need to do is set up the game, except for hit the start button on the timer. You have a 15-minute window to complete the game. If you don't reach your required amount of victory points by the end of the game, you have lost. 15 minutes are over, and again, you've caused me to have the sniffles. Again, a bad thing. Another thing about that timer is periodically you're going to hear a buzz or a ping or a pop. And that's going to give you notice that you have to draw one of these event cards. Everyone stops what they're doing. You read the event card out loud, and whoever it affects, or possibly everyone that it affects, has to take part in it. For example, this one, who's ever doing a build at that moment, must take a block and drop it 4 inches onto their build, probably wrecking the entire thing. These things are time suckers. It's going to slow you down on your goal to getting as many victory points as you need to win the game. As far as victory points go, for example, in a 1-player game, you need to capture 6 insight. I'll tell you how to capture that in just a moment. But the higher the player count, the more insight needs to be captured during those 15 minutes. If you capture your insight, again, the game's over, but this time you've won and you've saved the world. Now we've gone to setup. The last thing we do is start that timer and we go right into gameplay. The first thing you do in gameplay is draw design cards.
After this, play is simultaneous, so players could be working on the build or others could be working on master cure tiles.
Most of the time it's going to be draw one, play one, unless you have a special role card that will allow you to draw more than one card. For example, the award-winning research scientist gets to have a hand size of 2. When you're out of cards, you get to just draw a design card again. That means that you have, for this character, you have to play them both. But you can't draw one until your hand is empty. Next, you'll assemble these cards into the labs that you think they fit the best. Sometimes you're going to see that it won't fit at all or doesn't seem prosperous for you to add to your requirements. Some of these builds are going to be very, very difficult. I'll explain that in just a second. And you'll decide that it won't go into a lab. You'll decide that it won't go on to your workshop, so you'll have to place them someplace else. When you do that, you place them onto the wasted design cards board. Once the wasted design cards board is filled up, you have to play another mutation into the next available slot. You don't want to do that. It makes the lab far more difficult to acquire a cure and obviously gets you one step closer to losing the game. A nice thing about that is there's a way to clear that wasted design board. So as we play these design cards into the game, we will have to match them up. Now you can change the orientation of a card in any particular lab. You just can't change it from one lab to another or from a lab to your workshop or vice versa. Once they're down, they have to stay down. And you also have to match up the lines. For example, this card starts with 3, which is no problem where it starts, but the only cards that connect to it are a 2. So you'll place that card, it connects to those. As long as you don't break that rule, you can keep building. Hopefully it's achieving the goals that that lab has to cure that disease. Once you've actually acquired enough cards to cure a disease, let me just add one that doesn't have 3 onto it. You've had enough cards to cure a disease and it meets the requirements. You have another player verify those requirements. When you verify that requirement, you then move to the build phase. If you're playing by yourself, you've got to verify your own requirements. When you do the build phase, you've got to take the bricks, the blocks that are on that, and assemble them in a certain way that it dictates. For example, the first card of this requires an orange brick touching a purple sphere and a green bridge. But the green bridge and the purple cylinder, not sphere, I'm sorry, purple cylinder can't be touching. Now it also means the orange brick moves on to the next layer, as does this green bridge. So from there I'll do a red triangle that touches a blue half circle, and those 3 have to, well, and then another green bridge. That green bridge has to, the blue half circle has to touch that green bridge and the red triangle. I don't know that can happen. So that leads me to the next point. Some of these builds are going to be better on paper than they are going to be in real life. You can't construct those cures. Don't worry. You still have the ability to fill up those other 2 diseases to try to accomplish those goals. And once you do, you get the rewards from that lab and from that disease. Sometimes it's a negative thing from the disease, so if they're really, really easy to do, you'll get a negative number. Some of those won't be. So for example, in this one you get 1 microscope and 2 knowledge plus the cards. It would be 1, 2, 3, it'd be 3, 4 knowledge total, and 4 microscopes total and 2 knowledge. Then you'll take that number, those 4 microscopes and the 2 knowledge, and then spend them on these master cure tiles. You'll take a master cure tile with whatever value that it needs. For example, I get 2, so I'll take this Pac-Man piece, and then I will take this I have 4 microscopes, so I'll take this 3 microscope, and I have 1 microscope remaining. I would love to use that microscope to clear my wasted design cards board, place that into the discard pile. You want to keep that wasted design cards board free as much as you can, but don't spend too much of your rewards on clearing that board, because remember, we only have 15 minutes to save the world. Next, we're going to talk about the actual Master Cure Capture Insight section. So, as you assemble these Master Cures, you're going to capture certain areas by sealing the insights off into those areas. So, for example, with those tiles, I've captured everything in that yellow area, and I would move my insights up 1, 2, 3. That's great. I've moved 3. I'm halfway there to my victory points, and I've also triggered the special ability on my character profile or workshop area. That allows me to have +1 for each yellow insight that I've captured. So now I have a hand size of 5, which is great. Keep in mind that this isn't static. While the cards are static in their labs, the Master Cure tiles will not be static. At any point in time during the game, you may want to swap those around and change that. Keep in mind when you do that, when you end up capturing, for example, this blue area instead of the yellow, that tracker goes down and those shift back and forth. Now, your workshop area does the exact same thing as building in the lab. You kind of build that, your design cards go onto your workshop area. You decide to build what you have, and once you've done that, you gain a bonus. For example, this one gives me +1. Once this is built properly, I'll get +1 microscope for every knowledge that I get as well. So you'll get bonuses throughout the game in order to achieve those goals. Once I've captured enough insight, I call for a check. Of course, if I'm playing by myself in a one-player game, I have to check it myself, but I'll call for a check, make sure that the insight tracker is kept up, and if I have captured enough insight, for example, in a one-player game, you capture 6, then the game is over and you've saved the world in 15 minutes. And don't you feel good about yourself? That's how you play Science or Die or whatever this is called. Now get out there, start curing some diseases, make some people feel better. God knows I would love to have whatever's wrong with me cured.